Kaikar France. He just did Ariel's program. This is earlier in the week. I'm catching up. I got to see it this morning. Now, I like to hear from Kaikar France. He's part of City Kickboxing, and that team gives us as good of an outlook and as good of a perspective as to what's happening currently in our industry, as well as what we can expect in the future. They do as good of a job as anyone I've ever seen. As a matter of fact, I know some programs that are the opposite. I am an amateur wrestling supporter, as you know, Penn State University, the reigning champions. You can't get information out of that. That is one of the cultural nuances within that program. And whether that helps them to remain champions or not, I suppose we don't know. We just know that's something they do and they are champions. So then we assume it must be helpful. I mean, you cannot get information out of that club. If I was to call Coach Casey Cunningham and I was to ask him when Bo Bassett's birthday is, he wouldn't tell me. For whatever reason. But he wouldn't tell me. And he'd be very nice. Oh, Chael, I had to get a calendar out. I mean, I know what it was last year, but I don't. For 2023, I have to get back to how's everything going out there in Oregon. He would have moved on from that topic and we'd be 3 steps down the road before I ever knew it happened. And I only share that with you because City Kickboxing is different. And when they tell you things, and sometimes when you ever scratch your head, go, what is he talking about? And then 2 weeks later, you read the headline, go, oh, wait a minute, he revealed that 2 weeks ago. So it's a really important club to listen to. Kaikar France came out. He said that there is a large historical significance. That sounds powerful. About what? Glad you asked. About Adesanya defeating Pereira in their last meeting. One of the biggest moments in our generation. That is a massive statement. Clearly, as a younger guy on the roster at City Kickboxing, he looks up to Israel Adesanya, and that is how he has such a misguided and overstated interpretation of that fight. Well, not so fast. Not so fast, because now he's got me thinking. And yes, their relationship is relevant. And yes, where he lives in the world and the significance that it brought that area, the media and the attention and the parades, and I don't mean that literally, but that happened, being that close to it, would be a little bit more than some of the things that we would understand. That's true. And if you live in this sport, and if you're good at it, you're a top guy like Kaikar, who very likely will be the world champion someday. There's not a lot else that you do. There's just not a lot of else interest you have. If you're not practicing, if you're at home and you're relaxing reading about MMA. You're relaxing watching Ariel Helwani talk to other people about MMA. I mean, you really live in the space. And I have to say that because Kaikar's statement sounds greatly embellished to me. It sounds greatly exaggerated to me. But is it? Israel Adesanya is not yet what he will be. And we just see this with artists. You could be talking about Van Gogh. They don't get their credit until they die. Now, it could be the death of a career. It could be where you take it away and it's over and you look back. But it's very, very true. Nonetheless, my uncle won Olympic championship in 64, but he won world championship in 65 for the Celtics, and he ended up getting 3 more rings. Three rings in total. But he played against Wilt Chamberlain. And my uncle, to this day, big real estate guy in his area, and he will use on his car, like he's got a big flyer, going to a local restaurant, on your way out, you can grab a flyer. He has his flyers in there. And it's a picture of him playing. It says, Mel Counts Real Estate and whatnot. But it's a picture of him dribbling around Wilt Chamberlain. So this is the time that my uncle played. That's all that I'm trying to share for you. And the highest that he'd ever heard of a guy making in that time was actually Wilt Chamberlain. That was $80,000 a year. And I'm just attempting to share for you, as big as Wilt might be to you basketball aficionados now, he was playing back then. He was on TV then. A lot of you don't even know what a Wilt is. He was playing then. He was famous then. He was on TV then. But it wasn't all that big of a deal, and it wasn't overly appreciated. Just so you understand. Time went on. And some of the stuff that he didn't happen again. Some of the numbers that Wilt put up and some of the blocks that he had and some of the rebounds that he stole weren't records that were taken by somebody else for a meaningful period of time. And that's when you begin to look back and look at his career, and it's common. It's a very common thing. Bruce Lee, as a martial artist and as a mind, he was watched in America. People were starting to get an idea about him. But he was not praised and supported, not in his time. It was quite the opposite, in fact. He was resisted. Bruce had a philosophy that no one else had, which is, if you are a Taekwondo master, feel free to get workouts at the karate gym. That might make sense to you guys. It wasn't then. Bruce wasn't welcomed or praised within his own circles. Then, a little bit of time goes by. And I only bring that to you because Adesanya does bring a skill. He does bring a charm. He does bring a charisma. He does bring a team player, a willing to help others, desire to compete that is extremely rare. And when it's gone, it will be valued exponentially more than it is now. That's true. He is one of those players. That's true. Now let's go back to what Kaikar said, right? Those are nice things I said about Izzy. So what? How does that tie to what Kaikar said? Well, because Kaikar made it very clear that historically, meaning history as we know it, reality that we know, would be different had that not happened. That's the part that I'm looking into. So if that had not happened, this guy that we know is going to be great, he's destined for greatness, but a death must happen first. The death of a career. And the way you remember, the way you looked at, is tied to how you go out. Not as strong as guys like to make believe, but it is tied to that. So if you get brought down, Pereira comes in, and you walk away and you don't ever come back, there is a way after 5 and 6 and 10 years that you will be discussed that will be different than if you're, in this case, Israel Adesanya, you lose to Pereira again, you stay in the division, you continue to compete, you just don't do it for the championship because that guy's there. It is very different in terms of perception. Another scenario, you're Israel Adesanya, you lose to Pereira in that contest that Kaikar France references, you go up to 205 pounds. Why? What happens to you there? Because I've heard a lot of you say that is why I'm getting in front of this thing, that he would just go up and he would just take on a world championship. That's tough. That's a tough one. If you lose at 85, you go to 205, to get the opportunity is beyond rare. But to act as though he could get an opportunity a second time after he failed one, you're wrong. You are wrong. That's not what would have happened to Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya right now, currently, had he lost that match, which is what Kaikar is referencing, would either be out of the sport. Don't really need your opinion on what you think. There's two options. That's one. Or he would be floating around middleweight or light heavyweight. It would be his choice. He would be floating around. He would not be the top contender. He would not be the top guy. He would not be in title talks. And our sport would be different. Our sport would be worse. Our sport is better with him as the face of a division, in this case, the middleweights. That's true. And that might be as simple as Kaikar was going with that. I might have gone in a direction that was different than where Kaikar was going. It was just a big statement. It caught my attention. I rewound it. I listened to it. I go to my partner, Ryan. So what do you think of this? Ryan, I went back and forth, and I think, right, all art is open for interpretation. This is an artist speaking about another artist. That's my interpretation. And ultimately, I think that Kaikar is right.